Hello and welcome to another video of IB Mathematics. In this one we're going to be talking about grouping data and basically we're going to end up talking a lot about frequency tables, which is a very important part of the statistics program. So what's the point of grouping data? When we have a lot of data where we don't have this short list like we had before, it tends to become pretty complicated to handle or even to read them. Suppose you have this list here. It's big. There's a lot of numbers here. It's not very clear whether we have more ones than twos or threes or fours. So we need to make it easier to read, and that's how we come up with frequency tables. This is a frequency table. It has, for number 1 we have 30 ones, number 2 we have 27 twos, etc. That's the easiest and simplest way to group data in a frequency table. So once we have group data inside a frequency table, we can calculate things out of it. So this is something that keeps blowing everybody's mind for a while, and it takes a while to really see it as it is. But just think about it for a minute. We have here these three numbers, 5, 6, and 7, and these are the frequencies. So there's 3 5s, 2 6s, and 4 7s. So this is exactly the same thing as this, just written in a different way. This is a simple example. When we have much larger samples, then it makes more sense than in this case to use a frequency table. So if we want to calculate from this, the mean, well, it would normally be 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. Rather than doing that, we can just say 5 times 3, which is the same thing as 5 plus 5 plus 5, plus 6 times 2, plus 7.4, and divided by 3 plus 2 plus 4, 9. This is the same thing as doing it out of this. So this is how you do it, calculate the mean out of group data. You multiply the number by the frequency, add all those together and divide by the addition of the frequencies. You have a formula for that in your formula booklet. When you calculate the median, you have to figure out how many values I have. So I have 9. Well, so the median is going to be the 5th value, because that way we have 1, 2, 3, 4 values before the 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9 values after the 5. So what's the 5th value? The 5th value is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 5th value is going to be a 6. And to calculate the mode is extremely easy. Just look for the one that has the highest frequency. In this case it's 7. So that would be how you calculate the mode from grouped data. These are the dispersion measures, which you haven't seen yet, but you can come back here and look how you calculate them out of a group data table. So here's the typical exam question. You're given this table of frequencies and you have to calculate the mean, the standard deviation, and the variance, which again are dispersion measures, which you will be able to come back here and look at this later. For the mean, as I said, just multiply number times frequency. And then you add the multiplications and you divide it by the addition of all the frequencies. Here they are, we add them all up, and we get the mean. That's how you calculate the mean from a frequency table. Now, what happens when you have something like this? So, sometimes you have too many different kinds of values, especially if you have continuous data. Remember, discrete and continuous data. So it doesn't make sense to say how many ones do I have, how many twos do I have, how many threes do I have. What it makes sense to do is to say how many numbers do I have between 1 and 4, between 5 and 8, between 9 and 12. This is what we call intervals. And we're going to be, this is a very, very, very common question in the exam. And the reason why we use intervals is because they're easier to read. Keep this in mind, this is extremely important. The little bracket at the end is going to tell you whether 4 is included or not. And this is a typical one they put there to see if they can catch you making a mistake on this one. So remember the little bracket, look for it all the time. When you calculate with intervals, of course, you say, hey, but hold on, if there's an interval, does it 13 times 1 to calculate the mean? 13 times 4 to calculate the mean? What do I do? Neither. You calculate the midpoint, the point in the middle of the interval. So for the interval 1 to 4, and the midpoint is going to be 2.5. 1 plus 4 divided by 2. So if you have to calculate the mean with something that has intervals, you just calculate first the midpoints, and once you have the midpoints, you multiply midpoint times frequency, midpoint times frequency, and in the same way as before, that's how we get the mean. The standard deviation, we just have to put things in the calculator. You'll see that later. So here's another typical exam question where we're going to be calculating things with that have intervals. And now we're going to be calculating the value of p. So we just put everything inside the equation, solve, and we're going to end up getting the value of p. You can see, you can check this exercise slowly. It's really not that hard, but it's a tricky one because every time they put a little variable here, students get scared and think, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to solve this problem. Really, it's not that complicated. Now, this is a tricky one. It's really not that complicated. It just means that sometimes instead of like having to calculate, having to deal with big numbers, you can simplify it and just subtract 1,000 from all of them. And at the very end, we put it in there and we add it again. So we can subtract or add a number to all the data in our set of data, and then do all the calculations in a much easier way, and at the end we just have to add it or subtract it back. Simple as that. And they like to make a question on this. I'm going to put an example now. It's an example. So what happens, the way it works is that if you add or subtract a value to every data item, then you're going to have to add or subtract that value to the mean. But you don't change the standard deviation. You don't know about this yet, but you'll see it later. Similarly, if you multiply or divide every data item by a value, you will have to multiply or divide the mean, but you will also have to multiply or divide the standard deviation. Remember that. So here's an example with this funky set of data. Finally, this is a very typical exam question where they give you, you're going to end up with a set of data. Well, you don't actually have a set of data here. You have the mean temperature for a region and the standard deviation, and you have to change from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So when you change the mean, you will have to do this, subtract and divide. But when you change the standard deviation, you will only have to divide. That's the thing to remember about dealing with frequency tables when they are in intervals. Remember, you calculate the midpoints, and when you make constant changes to the data, you will have to be careful with what happens to the mean and what happens to the standard deviation. That's all. Thank you very much for watching.